All right. Whoa. What's going on, everyone? This is Sean from All Things EV, and I figured I would do a live stream here. Let me see if I can close out some windows. Figured I'd do a live stream here. It's been super crazy busy on the real estate side, and I'm really struggling to do the typical sort of research-oriented, pre-produced videos. So I figured this might be an easy way for me to sort of get some content out there and talk a little bit about what is on my mind. So what I'll do is sort of cover some high level points, some things that I'm excited about, also some things that I'm concerned about based on this most recent Tesla Q1 2019 earnings call. In fact, if you want to follow along, you should be able to find the my talking points in the description of this video. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for jumping in. I will get to these questions here. So good news, if you watch my last live stream, I was having some trouble with the new live streaming platform on YouTube's backend. Figured it out. Life is good. Everything is right in the world. I can not only see my ugly mug, I can also see the chat screen to my right. Hello from Scotland. So I want to start off. I did put the earnings letter in the description of this video, so and I'll be just referencing that periodically. I want to touch probably most importantly at the very beginning, high level here. So there's 5 bullet points that Tesla wants you to know at a very high level executive summary. So that's a GAAP operating loss of 522 million, GAAP net loss of 702 million, including 188 million of non-recurring charges. And I just want to say up front here, this video is not to be used as financial advice. It's probably pretty obvious. This is just a discussion between friends here. So I'm just talking about my thoughts as an owner, as an investor in the company. Next on the bullet point list is cash and cash equivalents of 2.2 billion at the end of Q1. Model 3 gross margin around 20% in Q1. Revealed Tesla Model Y, which I was at. And then the last bullet point, started production on full self-driving computer, which we probably all saw on the live stream. So with that said, I want to cover some bullet points here. The first one is, hey, thanks, Bob, for the contribution there. Really means a lot. So the Say platform, this was something that was introduced in Q4 earnings. And, you know, as you probably saw, there were several questions from retail share investors. I always have a hard time, like the Texan comes out in me when I say retail. But Tesla took questions for the first time from say.com last earnings call, in which they took one of my questions about customer service. This time they did it a second time, and I think that they probably had more questions submitted, some good and some not so great. In fact, I found myself while listening to the earnings call thinking the institutional investor questions may be a little bit better this time than the retail shareholder questions, but there were still some good ones. But I do have one concern that I just want to voice about the Say platform this second time around with Tesla. It seemed like they cherry-picked questions from the platform. So they didn't necessarily pick the top most voted questions or the ones that represented the highest number of shares. Actually, I only checked number of votes. Maybe I should check real quick. Number of shares represent for each question. So let me just do that really quickly here. If I can find shareholders, if I can find this really fast for you. I realize I'm live streaming here. Get on earnings call. Tesla. Retail. Okay, so we're going to go most shares. Did they take? Okay, so it looks like they may have taken most shares represented. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay. So I take that back. So they did go in order of most shares represented. Um, that sort of null and voids my point that I was going to make. I sort of had the impression, just based off of number of votes, that they were cherry picking questions, which I think is a little bit problematic. I just want to sort of say that up front. If they ever do that sort of thing, it sort of defeats the purpose of taking questions from retail shareholders if they can pick the ones that they want to answer. But it appears to be that was not the case. So forget that I ever said that and brought that up. I'm going to go with, I want to talk about the things that I'm most excited about right off the top, and then I'll move into my concerns. So after listening to the earnings phone call, the one of the things that I'm most excited about is the future product roadmap. So you've got this new Model S and X that they've refreshed with the new permanent magnet motor in the front drive unit, as well as some other minor efficiencies. You've not only got that, but you've got the Model Y that they're working on production for next year, as well as the semi-truck, as well as the Roadster. However, they didn't mention anything about the Roadster, from what I can recall, on the earnings call. Nonetheless, hopefully they're working towards that, because I know a lot of people are really excited about that one. And on top of that, I would also consider one of their products being Autopilot. Autopilot seems to be progressing pretty well. They've created their own silicon. They've got their own computer chip for to process the autonomy, the full self-driving. And that makes me really excited. It makes me look forward to something because you can clearly see that they're spending capital on making things better, improving things for new customers as well as existing customers. Next point on the list is new S and X with increased range and charge rate. I'm really, really excited about this because before this earnings call, we all saw that the deliveries for Model S and X had dropped significantly. In fact, they hadn't seen as significant of a drop like that since 2016. And they did some sort of pricing gymnastics and option gymnastics for Model S and X. They took away a 75 kilowatt hour. They then went to a standard range and a long range, but then they removed the standard range, so there only was the long range and the performance. That, I think, had a huge impact. My guess is, sort of behind the scenes, they were probably retooling the line for that new drive unit and some of those other changes. It's also not quite clear if they've done anything on the actual hardware charging side, so that these new S and X can take that 200 kilowatt charge rate. At least I haven't seen anything in what Tesla published for their release, their public release on their news page, as well as I read through a couple of news articles that Tesla and Elon retweeted, thinking that they may have added some or gotten some additional insight directly from Tesla that Tesla didn't say on their press release. So it leads me to believe that and this question has come up not only on YouTube videos of mine, but also on Twitter. You've asked me if I think that old Model S and X will be eligible for the 200 kilowatt charge rate. And though not fully confirmed, I think the answer is no. I think the reason why, so if Model S and X did have the hardware capabilities, they would have included them in the version supercharging version 3 event that they did for Model 3 owners. So I suspect, and again, this is not confirmed, but just based on what I've read and sort of what I've seen between the lines, I think that they had to wait until they refreshed. Of course, Tesla and Elon say they don't do refreshes, but this new version or updated version of S and X, I think they needed to wait until they did that in order for S and X to be eligible for V3 charging. Now, old S and X, I do believe they will get that bump in charge rate of 150 kilowatts. That's something that I think is new news. They had originally been saying 145 kilowatts. Now it appears to be that they're going to do 150 kilowatts. So I think I've hit that point. I'm really excited about that. I'll just say one more thing about this new S and X. This is a proven. These are proven vehicles, flagship vehicles they call them. They've got a proven gross margin, a production line that has all the kinks worked out. They've been producing these vehicles for many, many years. They started with the S in 2012, the X in 2016, and this is a real key fundamental part of Tesla's profitability and revenue, generating revenue, because this is an old hat for them. They've just made some minor changes or updates to S and X. The fundamental vehicle, the exterior, the interior appear to be exactly the same. All right, so full self-driving chip is another thing that I'm super excited about. This appears to be something that will give Tesla a huge leg up on competitors. And I'll say another thing here. This is actually a really good time for me to sort of weave in and out comments that I've seen and responded to on some of my videos. So on one of my previous videos about Tesla's electric vehicle Holy Grail, I talk about how they have a competitive advantage for battery range as well as efficiency and charge rate for that matter. But I think the two that I focus on in the video are a charge rate and range. And understandably, several people have said one of the other competitive advantages that Tesla has is this autopilot full self-driving piece. The reason why I have not included it in videos previously is because Tesla's really in a league of their own. So there's not really anyone to compare to that's an automaker selling a vehicle that has similar semi-autonomous and soon-to-be autonomous features. That being said, I do believe that it is something here that as this full self-driving suite continues to be rolled out through firmware and software updates, I do think that it will be I believe Elon said this in the Autonomous Day, game, set, and match. This will really truly be a mic drop moment, as if they weren't ahead enough in their technology on the range, efficiency, and charge rate side. I do think that this autonomy piece, though it has not yet been fully realized, it appears to be. This is actually the first time that I have believed Elon Musk that the feature set for full self-driving will be available later this year. He said stuff like this in the past, but it's never been as certain and as concrete. And even from what I'm seeing from an initial feature suite, from what Autopilot 2 plus 2.0 and up vehicles have, I think they're really heading towards this and making some significant progress. So next thing that I'm excited about after listening to this earnings call is the organizational efficiencies. This is something that they talked about. I think that they've reiterated this not only in this past earnings call, but the one before. And this is all because Tesla is trying to actually shout out to Fully Charged, sporting their shirt today. But I think this is spawning from Tesla's need to reduce costs and run more efficiently as a company. And though it might be coming from a financial strain perspective, from what it appears, I think that long term, making the company run more efficiently, cutting unnecessary costs, will put the company in a really, really strong position in the event we do see an economic slowdown. I don't necessarily see that, at least from a real estate perspective. I don't think there's any economic slowdown from a real estate perspective, and usually that's one of the industries to get hit the first rather. So I'm extremely optimistic about this. This is good for any company. This is good for a solo entrepreneur like myself who's running my own business to run lean. And this is definitely something that I myself am thinking about, not taking on too much debt and not acquiring too much cost, and also finding ways to run my business more efficiently with things that don't cost me any money, where I can get the same output. China or Shanghai Gigafactory, super pumped about this one. This seems to be progressing just insanely fast. I saw probably all of the photos and videos that you saw this morning of that plant or manufacturing facility just going up like crazy. So it sounds like they'll be producing their first vehicles in September. Is that what if I recall correctly? And I believe Elon said on the call that it would be at about a 2,000 vehicle run rate. This, I think, is fundamental to bringing that $35,000 standard range vehicle back and reducing the cost of that vehicle. I suspect that's why they moved it to off menu. It either was very slimly profitable or maybe at a slight loss. And that's why they've moved it to off menu, and they've been trying to upsell and push the standard range plus. Okay, improvements to vehicles through software updates. And by the way, I'll get to your questions as well. Let me just make sure I haven't missed any. Okay, cool. Improvements to vehicles through software updates. This again is another angle that I think Tesla just has an incredible leg up on at the moment. From what I'm aware, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, those that are listening, Tesla is the only one right now, the only EV automaker who has the ability to push out software updates and make the car better. Now, I can say from experience that the Jaguar I-Pace does come with over-the-air software updates. However, this is a traditional automaker, and Tesla, on the contrary, is really a software company at heart that is making a hardware product with that. I'd say very similar to Apple. I think that's a very similar comparison in terms of their approach. So I'm most excited about this. The reason why is because this allows for vehicles that Tesla produces and delivers to customers to get better over time. Whether it's software, whether it's range increases, whether it's helping solve people in the San Francisco Bay Area with break-in problems. They're adding it's just amazing to me that they added a security system to the car through software updates. And this is I think another competitive advantage for Tesla, the ability to improve their vehicles over time. And this is something that's not unique to Tesla. I don't think this is a technological advantage. This is just a part of the culture. I think any company could hire the right type of developers, software developers, to compete on the software angle. We haven't seen that yet, though, in my opinion. So super excited about that. All right, so let's move to the concerns here. After listening to this earnings call, there's a few things that concern me. First and foremost is the Q2 outlook in the earnings letter. Let me just quote it to you. Let's see here. Do I have it up still? Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the letter, I might need to do a search again because I think it is somewhere. Yeah. So it's at the very, very end. It's actually the last paragraph. They say operating cash flow CapEx should be positive in every quarter, including Q2, as the impact of higher deliveries and cost reduction take full effect. We expect to return to profitability in Q3 and significantly reduce our loss in Q2. So even though Q1 was a huge downer, it appears like Tesla is anticipating a loss again in Q2, but not as great as Q1, and that they will return to profitability in Q3. So they had been sort of guiding, I think, since last year that Q1 was the only quarter that they expected a loss. Now they're saying that Q2 will be the same as well. So the question that comes up in my mind is, Um, you know, I realize that Elon and Tesla have emphasized the fact that there's not any issue with demand. But and they've actually shrugged this off many every time that they've gotten a question about demand or reservations, they've shrugged this off. And this is a real true question. And my thought before this earnings phone call was, if Q1 was truly a seasonal demand dip, and a dip because of pull through to the Q4 2018, then Q2 should go back up again. But now they're talking about a loss. So I'm just that is a concern of mine. I'm not saying it's based in reality, but it is something that I'm keeping a close eye on. Which of course goes into my next bullet point here: long-term demand. I'm keeping a very close eye on this. Now, I'm confident that Model S and X and the updates that they made, I'm confident that that will sort of bring in the interest, bring back the interest for people who don't don't need a Model 3. They need something bigger. I'm actually one of those. I've looked at the Model 3 plenty of times, but every time I come back to the size piece, not just me sitting in the front seat, but just my whole family and all the gear that comes with a family, the stuff that you fit into the trunk. I also believe that the second row of the Model 3, there's just not very much room in there for an adult, in terms of, the bench seems to sit a little bit lower, your knees sit a little bit higher, there's a little bit less leg room, a little bit less shoulder room. So definitely keeping a close eye on long-term demand. I'm pretty confident about Model S and X, and it appears like Tesla's guiding towards delivery numbers being back to where they typically are, around 25K to 30K for S and X. Volatility of Elon's social media interactions. Every time I see him post something wild and crazy, not just like zany humorish type stuff, but post where he's taunting and calling people out. In my opinion, and I realize that some Tesla fans may differ in opinion here, but I just think that it's unnecessary. I think that you can prove people wrong very easily by executing on your deliverables, which is producing and selling vehicles and other products, for that matter, energy products too. But selling products and generating revenue. I think that you silence all of the critics, all of the shorts, all of the haters. You prove people wrong by executing on those deliverables. There we go. Everything else is just noise, right? It's you can make everything go away, make all the critics go away, if you just execute on those deliverables and bring in money for the company. So I'm really concerned about that. I don't want, the worst case scenario I could see is Elon is removed from the company, and I think that would be a huge detriment to Tesla, because a large part of Tesla's brand is built around Elon Musk. Next point: weekly vehicle price fluctuations. This is another thing that we saw in Q1, and I think it made. I don't know what size of subset of customers upset, but I can say definitively that I got some of that feedback, not only within the Denver Tesla Club, but just owners online. I'm helping a couple of people right now who got caught up in this increase and decrease and increase again of pricing. So I think Tesla would be better off by not reducing price. It's totally okay to increase price. That makes sense for a number of reasons, which I won't go into. But when you decrease price and then you increase price in a very short amount of time, it really confuses people, number one, and I think it can really frustrate people who bought vehicles. So I'd love to see less of that and more of a gradual, let's say, quarter by quarter increase of products. As I mentioned before, they continue to iterate and improve their vehicles. And so it makes complete sense that as that feature set grows for their vehicles, that you increase the price as well. And lastly, and then I'll go ahead and read through everyone's comments and questions here. The 2170 battery cell availability. This is something that I've seen in the news. It came up on the earnings phone call. Elon said that they don't expect any challenges with getting to that 400,000 vehicle delivery in 2019. With that 2170 cell demand. But then I saw earlier today that Panasonic was considering converting one of their Model S and X 18650 cell lines in Japan to 2170. So I wonder if behind the scenes they're trying to figure out how to fulfill more demand where it's needed, which is that high production volume vehicle right now. It's the Model 3, but I also know that they want to roll out more power packs and power walls. Elon did say on the earnings call that they would be able to source other cell suppliers for battery packs for their energy battery packs and power walls and power packs from other suppliers, since it didn't require homologation. So that's the first time that I've ever heard directly from Tesla about that. I have seen some articles where Tesla has sourced from some other companies battery cells to fulfill some of those energy products. But to me, that's interesting. I'm definitely keeping a close eye on that. Definitely would not want to see any sort of supply constraint on the cell side for 2170 cells. And then lastly, I didn't put this in, but I do think that this is not a concern. Well, maybe it is a concern. They did comment on the Maxwell deal. They expect it to close mid-May. I hope it does. And once it does, I will feel a lot more confident about the future of Maxwell technologies being integrated into Tesla. And by the way, I've said this during a few conversations, but I think that this is Tesla's sort of maybe 2 to 5 year plan to integrate the dry battery electrode technology into Tesla's battery cells, and not only reduce costs, but also increase longevity, charge rate, as well as range of the next iteration of their battery cell. So that's all I've got to say. I've been talking for 28 minutes now. I'm going to go through and try and catch some questions here. 2170 cells in Model S and X. I don't think that they're going to add them anytime soon, knowing that that they just made this range update. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Maxwell Tech once that deal does close. I'm curious to know if they'll take that chemistry and implement it into the 18650 form factor rather, or if they'll switch everything to 2170 cells. I guess that depends a lot on availability and supply of 2170. All right, lots of hellos. Hello from Germany. Boring Revolution bought more Tesla stock. Yeah, I really want to do the same. I just don't have the available capital to do it right this very second. I think I may have some mid-May, but a lot could happen with stock in between now and then. Yeah, Larry Spiller, I did listen to the entire hour-long earnings call. When will the stock hit 420? No clue. I'm optimistic about it hitting 420 and beyond, but a lot could happen in between now and that time. How many shares do I own? Around 20. It fluctuates. So, but interested in continuing to grow my position. Yeah, Eco Kids. Will I buy more if it drops below 200? For sure, as long as I've got as long as I've got the available capital. I mean, that's the thing. It's when you have a family with two kids, there's a lot of other things that you have to sometimes prioritize. And right now we've got one major project, one major purchase that we intend on making sometime in 2019. So um, I have to keep that in mind because my available cash on hand will go towards this major purchase. Let's see here. Why Brick Hunter? Why May 15th? You're talking about the Maxwell. The tender extension for the Maxwell deal runs out on May 15th. Yep, I think that answers your question. Melody Lane, cool. You just bought stock. Eco Kids, about your concern in rain and snow. They did address a question specifically tied to that on the Autonomy Day presentation. So you should go back and watch that. Elon seemed to be pretty confident about a workaround for that. I'm reading through questions. Okay, I'm looking for question marks here. Has to be respectful of people's time here. With all the good news, can you speak to the FUD coming out of places like CNBC and which reflects in the stock value? I mean, Tesla's a very enchanting company. A lot of people are very curious about it, and I think that's why you see a lot of interest, both for and against. And it's a new thing. Anytime there's something new that challenges existing notions, there's going to be very polarizing opinions. You think about anything that's controversial and new. It's always happened over time, especially with innovation. Could you imagine what people thought about the first automobile? People who own businesses who owned horse and carriage businesses or were tied to that business, horseshoeing and building of the carts, selling horses. I guarantee you that they dismissed the automobile, and over time, little by little, companies iterated on the product, improved it little by little, and now it seems silly and inefficient to ride a horse and carriage. Right? You never see anyone do that unless you're in very specific, extremely conservative regions like the Amish and the Mennonites. So I think the FUD is what it is. It's people having differing opinions, and because Tesla is a new company, and for that matter, its leader Elon is very what's a good way to put it? Very charismatic, and so yeah, some people like that, some people don't. Okay, looking for question marks. Question marks. Yeah, Polestar will be able to do software updates. I'm optimistic about Polestar. My only concern about Polestar is, well, let me say what I like about them. I do like their tech. I'm not wild about the design, but I think the interior tech, the fact that the computers, the software is being run by Google. I think they're gonna compete with Tesla. I realize a lot of people don't like the lack of privacy aspect, but some people won't mind that. So yeah, optimistic. I'm optimistic, and it appears like Volvo Polestar will sell direct to consumer, and they won't go through the Volvo brand. I don't know how that will work to be. I don't know how to work to be like. Of course, they've got Volvo dealership constituents that they might upset if Volvo. It's basically a Volvo car. It's basically an S60. I don't know how they're going to take to that. So that'll be really interesting to me to see how they navigate those politics. Yeah. Yeah. Instead of criticizing Tesla, let's look at the competition and how the auto industry is doing. I'm not sure if that's directed towards me or some of the other comments, but um, yeah. I mean, I think as a shareholder, I think assessing risks and reward is a fundamental part of investing, but also running a business. Are the risks greater than the reward? And do I personally have an appetite for those risks? So, criticizing might be a little bit too far if you're referring to some of the stuff that I'm talking about. But certainly a leader in the auto industry. They are probably 2 to 4 or 5 years ahead of their competition easily in technology. Uh, how much of this hit in profits do you think is due to the delivery and support issues? In my opinion, I think it has very little to do with support issues, and I think it has everything to do with volume of production and sales. All right, so I'm gonna cut it off at 40 minutes here. So I got 4 more minutes. I think we've reached the end here. Do you have any news on well? Do you have any news on Volvo XC40 EV? I mean it's going to be a carbon copy of Polestar 2. I don't have any news on it, and I think that Polestar needs to execute on their vehicle first, and I believe that the deliveries start in February of next year. So once they execute on that, I think that Volvo will start selling the XC40. Sorry, when you get to the end of the chat, it gets a little wacky here. Do you think it's possible that Model Y's range will increase once it gets closer to? I think that there is a likelihood that it will increase. Um, Depending on cost, of course, this is a low cost car, so I wonder how they'll integrate Maxwell technology into their lineup, current and future. They could potentially, and this would be interesting to me actually, for Tesla to introduce Maxwell tech into Model S, X, those higher price, so Roadster, semi truck, introduce Maxwell tech into that, and then keep the old battery chemistry for lower price cars. Um, let's see here. Regarding Q2 profitability, Tesla's justification was that they would transition from into quarter rush to a more consistent balanced delivery globally. Do you agree? I, 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 I mean, I'll hold my breath. I'll wait to see them actually execute on this. Tesla, just knowing a little bit about how they work internally, seem to. This is my impression. They appear to be a sort of last minute company. Now the downside to this is that you end up having these sort of back and forth in terms of decision. The advantage to this is that they're an incredibly nimble company. They can move really quickly without the bureaucracy and the internal politics. So I think it's both good and bad. Do you think Tesla will still use 200 kilowatt hour battery packs for a Roadster? Seems kind of like a lot. I've always been curious about this one. Elon has commented publicly on this when he sat down with MKBHD, and he said that it would be a double stack. It'll be two 100 kilowatt hour packs. However, the second pack would only increase in thickness. I think he said like 3 or 4 inches. So it's not a true like doubling in height. Um, so I have this, and this is pure speculation here. This is not based on any conversations that I've had with Tesla. This is just this is just speculation. I sort of wonder if they're basing it off of the Maxwell technology. I do know that Tesla was in discussions with Maxwell long before they showed off the Tesla Roadster. And so part of me wonders if they had two strategies. One, working off of their current cells, either the 2170 or the 18650, and double stacking it, or utilizing Maxwell Tech new battery chemistry and doing one battery pack, higher energy density. Again, speculation, but it's sort of fun to think about. All right, so we're at 40 minutes here. Thank you so much for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to me and chat it up and talk about the Q1 2019 earnings call and some of the things that we're excited and concerned about. So if you're watching this post-recording, feel free and put some comments down below. I do try and keep an eye on things from time to time. Things are getting a little bit busy, not only on the channel in terms of subscriber growth, which is awesome, but it's also a really busy time for me real estate-wise as we head into peak season here in summer. So thank you. Thanks to Patreon supporters. Thanks to all those who are subscribed to my channel, and appreciate your attention. We'll talk soon.